Hello, everybody. I don't know if there's very many people out there right now, but I thought I would just share what I've been doing and what I've kind of thought through as I've started to teach remotely. First off, teaching remotely is substantially different than teaching face-to-face. When we're in the classroom, we often situations a lot better. I feel like when I'm teaching online, I don't get to the feedback that I would from my students to be able to help them, whether they're tired, whether they're even bored, or whether they're engaged, or if they're not understanding something. And so I find that I need to, online, I need to find different ways to switch things up. And so one of the things I've been doing is I've been doing little short things when I'm working with my students. So for example, I won't talk for long periods of time. I'll talk, then I'll break off into a group, or I'll have them do something and come back. I try to plan out things a lot more than I normally would in the classroom. And I've tried to do things into sections so that things can be done asynchronously. And the only time when we really need to be synchronous is when we want to do group discussions. So what are some tools that you can do to make that happen? Well, first off, one of the things that I shared a while ago and then reshared just recently as things have started to switch to online teaching is Jitsi. So for those who don't know, Jitsi Meet, so Jitsi and then space MEET. Jitsi Meet is a great free open source online conferencing tool. And so really all you need to do is just go to meet.jit.si and it automatically will populate a unique name, and you can just say go, or you can put in your own and hit go. And what happens then is it creates a room automatically where you can do all the things you would do with things such as Zoom or Skype or Blackboard Collaborate, a lot of the same functions. I mean, it doesn't have things like breakout groups and stuff like that, but for smaller meetings, it works really, really well. And it works especially well with the app. There's a free app. Students just go to the app, type in the unique name that you gave. You don't have to register anything. Type in the unique name and boom, they're in. And the quality is really good. And so there's some unique things that I really like about it. Some people may find useful, and that is you might find it really good to use the push the spacebar to talk function. So instead of having students trying to turn on and off their microphones, one of the things that often happens then is when people come into a room, they will be chatting away, or they'll forget to turn off their microphone when they're supposed to be listening to one person, or they forget to turn on their microphone when they're talking and they don't realize that they're now muted. If you actually have your students hold down the space bar to talk, and then when they let go of the space bar, it mutes. Great function, really helpful to kind of keep the conversation going without having people interrupt things. And so I would recommend that. I also make use of the chat box quite a bit. And the raising the hand. So in my class, if I'm doing a short little introduction to something or explaining something, what I'll do is I'll have them post their questions in the chat box, and then I have them click on the raise hand thing, and then I know to check the chat box to see if there's anything there. So those are just a couple tips that I've discovered along the way. The other thing that I'm doing a lot more of is I'm doing asynchronous type of work. So I'll record something and then I will have them watch it before they come to class. And one of the ways I like to use that is the use of EdPuzzle. So for those who don't know EdPuzzle, it's edpuzzle.com. You just go there and you can create a free teacher account. You can use YouTube videos, or you can upload your own videos. Now the free account is limited to a certain amount of videos, but then once a video is done, you can remove it. And so really it depends. I've paid for an account, so I have that available. But what I do is you post in a video, and inside that you can post in questions, you can post in comments, and students will watch it, and they can't skip ahead. They can skip back, but they can't skip ahead, and so then they can keep going until they get to the end, and I get a indication of how far they've watched and that type of thing. So that's another tool I made a lot of use out of. And other things that I've used is for those who don't have access to their students all the time, maybe they want to have just text chat or audio chat, that type of thing. Well, text chat would be a great thing. It would be Talkio, so tlk.io, and that allows you to do an online text chat with students without registration. So all you have to do is just send a link to your students, and then, or a code actually, you don't even have to put the whole link, they can just put in the code, and then that way they can then use the chat function to be able to chat back and forth. So you could leave that up on your screen, and students can use their phones to ask you questions through, when you're not live. And so that allows you a chance to be able to keep a conversation going as well without having to have emails go back and forth. Another tip that I'm using OneNote, Microsoft OneNote with my class. So I use the class notebook. And what I did is I set up a page with announcements, and I use it almost like a blog type style where I post an announcement with the date and time highlighted, and then I have announcements there. So instead of me emailing back and forth with my students, I just keep a page and I keep it chronological with the newest at the top. And so then when students, I just tell them to check that page regularly so they know to go there, and I'll provide links, I'll provide updates and things like that that are going on. And that allows students to be able to have one landing page to be able to find questions, answers, updated news, everything all in one spot. And then below that, I have pages set up because in OneNote, you can create a section and then you have multiple pages. And so I have another page below that where I'll have things like office hours, I'll post the live classes updates, I'll post any assignment updates, anything that goes in there. So it all goes to the announcement page, but then it links to each of the individual sections for more details. That's been really helpful as well too for students, because then they know that there's just one place they have to go, and they can check that on their phones, and they can check it online, whatever. So it's available to them wherever. Speaking of OneNote, that's where I make a lot of use for the audio recording function. So on the apps, they can actually, on their phones, they can do audio recording. So for my students doing speaking exercises, pronunciation work, things like that, I'll post a page which I distribute to all the students, and then they just have to go to that page and click on the microphone. It will start recording right away. They can do the recording, click on the stop, and it's automatically in the page. Speaking of Microsoft Office 365 tools, another one that I use is Microsoft Forms, and what people don't realize is you can do a quiz within that, and it can do grading and that type of thing. But one of the things I really like is you can actually have students upload files. So that allows them to upload files up to 1 gigabyte. So you can actually have them turn in assignments using Microsoft Forms instead. So there's a lot of functions that you can use with something like Forms, OneNote. I use online documents, that type of thing. For other things that might be useful, if you wanted to have a place for students, maybe they don't have OneNote, but you want them to do audio recording, another tip is that you can use things like the usual like Vocaroo and things like that, and they can then send you a link, and then that link, instead of having to upload audio files, so some students, they don't have the bandwidth, but they can certainly record something using their phone or their laptop or desktop, and then they can actually then send you the link, and then you don't have to worry about large files and that type of thing. Another thing that you can also use a lot, I really appreciate Flipgrid as well. So Flipgrid is a great tool from Microsoft. It wasn't from Microsoft before, but they bought it since then. And then allows them to be able to do video responses. So you can post a video or just text, and then they answer back using their phones, using the Flipgrid app. So you create a class first and you do that, and then they can actually record that. Other tools, so I also shared out about using whiteboard.fi. That allows you to create a class set of online whiteboards, and that's kind of a cool little tool for students to be able to use their phones or use the mouse if they're using a laptop or desktop to be able to draw on a whiteboard. And so you can actually type and you can draw on a whiteboard, and that whiteboard, there's an individual one for each student, but there's also a general one that's the teacher can share with the whole class. So you can use it for things like marking up vocabulary for stress and pronunciation work, but they can also draw basically anything on there as a response back to what you would want. What else might be helpful to you? So another one that's really helpful is Google has an Autodraw. So if you just search for Autodraw, Google Autodraw, that's a really cool function for being able to create images. If you're not a very good artist like myself, you can actually draw and it will automatically pull up clip art that is what they think it is, and then you can click on the clip art and it changes your drawing into that clip art. And it's really handy for creating a scene, almost like an online whiteboard type of thing, and then you can download that image and you can upload it, for example, to share things if you want. That's a really helpful tool as well for myself, because I'm terrible on the whiteboard. I'm terrible drawing, even worse with a mouse. So it just helps me to be able to do that kind of thing. Try and think of some other tips and tricks that I've been kind of coming across. Microphones. One of the things I wanted to mention as well too is getting a good microphone. Getting a good sound quality for your students is more important than even the video quality. So I've been using clip-on mic, but you can use an external mic of all sorts of different sorts. Another thing is just to get your headset from your phone or whatever, with one that has a little microphone on it, and use that as well too, instead of using the built-in microphones on your computers. Built-in microphones are just terrible for their quality normally. So other tips, I found that it's nice for me because instead of just sitting at a desk all the time, I do use my iPad as well. So if you have a mobile device, it's really handy sometimes to just get away and then move outside or whatever, so that you can do stuff. And if you're going to do that, one of the things I like to do is like to do split screen mode. So I have my email on the side so I can keep checking updates from students and that type of thing. But on the right-hand side, I can do my online office hours, for example, and things like that, and I can move to another place. So I'm trying to think of what else right off the top of my head that's been really helpful to me. If you have any other tips, tricks, whatever, please put them in the comments box. I'm going to try and do these nice short little Q&A sessions throughout the week to try and help people out. If you do have any questions, you can post them to me, and then what I'll do is I'll try and answer them in the next video. But for now, I think that's it for me. You can find the recording later on my channel, and again, you can add comments and I'll try and respond to them as I can. Thanks for attending, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.